podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Two-Footed Podcast here on EPL Index. Now, before we kick things off today, I just want to share something with everybody. This episode is brought to you by our partners at Sky Bet. We've teamed up with Sky Bet because they truly understand what it means to be a fan. Sky Bet appreciates the length that people go through to support their team in all areas, whether you're a match-going fan or otherwise, and there's just no better fit for us right now than a partnership with the good folks at Sky Bet. So with that said, let's go. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Friday. It is September 13th. Friday the 13th. Unlucky for some, unlucky for Arsenal, who are heading into the weekend and a derby date with Spurs without Martin Odegaard, Declan Rice, Ricardo Calafiori, doubts over Gabriel Jesus and others. We'll get into them more when Guy joins us for parts 2 and 3. But here in part 1, given that today we are sponsored by our good friends at Sky Bet, we'll be having a look at the Sky Bet EFL Championship, League 1 and League 2, and what's taking place in those over the weekend. So, let's start with the Championship. Tonight, 8 p.m, Sheffield Derby. Hull City play host to Sheffield United. Now, Hull have not started the season well. Only 3 points from their first 4 games. Yet to win a game. 3 draws. Only 1 defeat, which isn't bad. But they're struggling to score goals. They obviously got decimated in the summer with both sales like Jacob Greaves and Jadon Philogene, and also then players that they had in on loan, Tyler Morton, Fabio Carvalho and Liam Delap, all leaving. And it's a shame because they've done so well last summer and then in January with their recruitment, and they brought in some really exciting players. And unfortunately, those players just got plucked away from them, either because Premier League clubs came in with big offers, such as Brentford for Carvalho, Ipswich for Delap, because the Premier League club wanted to sell a player rather than loan them again in the case of Morton, or with Philogene and Philogene and Greaves, clubs just putting money on the table that they couldn't say no to. They also obviously sacked Liam Rossinier. We'll see how they do. I don't have great hopes for them this season. Sheffield United, not the best of starts either, but certainly not a bad start by any stretch. Currently sitting 8th in the division. A lot of pressure on them, obviously, to come straight back up, and we'll see if they're capable. Tomorrow, then, we get 3 12:30 kickoffs, including what I think is the game of the weekend in the Championship. But there's Millwall versus Luton, which could be very interesting. Millwall in 15th, Luton currently 23rd with only 1 point. Both of them would like to really get their season kick-started here, though Millwall's obviously has been significantly better, based on the fact that they won a game of football so far, which Luton have not done. This will be a spicy one. This is 2 fan bases that really don't like each other and are not afraid to let the other know. So this one should be good. Oxford United against Stoke. Obviously, Oxford newly promoted. They sit in 9th. They've had a decent start. Stoke, on the other hand, sit 11th, and that's a much better start than they've had in either the last 2 years. So things are slowly turning around for them by the looks of things. The big game, though, is Leeds versus Burnley. So obviously, both have been recently relegated from the Premier League. Leeds, last season, everybody thought they'd go straight back up, and they failed to do so. Leeds have 8 points so far. They are unbeaten. Burnley have 7 points. They've lost 1. They started brilliantly in the first 2 games, haven't looked quite as good. Obviously lost quite a few players in the summer, as did Leeds. They lost Somerville, they lost Reuter, they lost Gray, a couple of others as well. But they've got a couple of players back and they made some decent moves. That one should be a belter. That's a 12:30 kickoff. 3 p.m., we have 8 games. We have Swansea versus Norwich, Watford against Coventry. That one should be good. Mark Robbins is an excellent coach. That Coventry team is pretty exciting. I think they're going to be a playoff team this year. But Watford under Cleverly at start of the season really well. Obviously lost last time out, and they'll want to bounce back from that. But that one should be a good game. Plymouth versus Sunderland. Sunderland top of the league at the moment. The only team to win all 4 games. Looking really good, so keep an eye for that one. Sheffield Wednesday versus QPR. The nostalgic fool of me loves that as a 90s Premier League matchup. Middlesbrough versus Preston. Blackburn Rovers versus Bristol. Derby County versus Cardiff City. And Portsmouth versus West Brom. So a lot of good games. I'd say the Portsmouth versus West Brom game is Sunday at 3 p.m. Sunday at 3 p.m. The other 7 are Saturday at 3 p.m. So we have a game tonight, 3 at 12:30, 7 at 3 p.m, and then 1 on Sunday. I think it's a really good slate of games. This is such an exciting division. It's a division that arguably is one of the most competitive in all of Europe. So I think these games are well worth your while watching. If your team isn't playing at a certain time and you're not overly pushed on watching another Premier League match, throw an eye on the Championship. You won't be disappointed. Most times out, you will not be disappointed. League One then. Mansfield take on Cambridge in one of the 2 12:30 kickoffs tomorrow. Both of these sides will be hoping to add some steam to their season, particularly Cambridge, who've only got 1 point so far. Mansfield are sitting solidly in mid-table. The other 12:30 game then is Northampton Town against Wycombe Wanderers. Both of those sides currently sitting in mid-table. Neither of them expected to be a promotion challenger. That's the second game at 12:30. At 3 p.m, we get Shrewsbury versus Charlton. We get Rotherham versus Burton Albion. Rotherham obviously recently relegated into League One. Burton barely survived last season. That one should be interesting. Bolton against Huddersfield. Stevenage against Barnsley. Crawley against Stockport. And obviously Stockport have started the season very well. Newly promoted into it. And absolutely flying so far. Currently sitting second. Undefeated. 8 goals, only 1 conceded. And while 3 points behind the team who are top of the league, they do have a game in hand. Blackpool against Exeter. Steve Bruce obviously now at Blackpool. Looking forward to seeing how he does. Bristol against Wigan. Should be decent. Bristol Rovers, that is. Peterborough against Lincoln. Reading against Leyton Orient. And then the big game is a Monday night 8 p.m. kickoff, which I think is brilliant that this game is being given that kind of recognition to be televised. It's Wrexham against Birmingham. Now, it's in Birmingham, so big advantage for them to have that at home. They obviously spent a crazy amount of money in the summer for a League One team. They spent more than any Championship team. They spent more than a number of Premier League teams. The relegation was entirely of their own making, and this is their attempts now to make up for it. So, looking forward to this one. Should be very good. Wrexham are top, but have played a game more. Again, pretty big money has been put into them through their famous owners, but everything they've done so far has hit positively, whereas everything Birmingham had done up until this season was a bit of a disaster. I think this is going to be a really good game. I fancy Birmingham to win being at home, but I think this is going to be a really good game, and I would urge people to watch that one on Monday night. Moving on then, League Two. We had one game yesterday. Harrogate Town beat Doncaster Rovers by 2-0. Doncaster, of course, had started brilliantly and were top of the league. This was quite the upset, given pre-game Harrogate were sitting down, I think, 4th from bottom. So that's a big win for them. Tomorrow, 12:30 kickoff, AFC Wimbledon versus MK Dons. This, for me, if you're not going to watch Leeds Burnley and you're not going to watch a Premier League game, go and watch this game. This is everything that's good about football versus everything that's bad about football. This is grassroots versus corporate. This is fans versus businessmen. This is the battle for Wimbledon. The Wombles, the Crazy Gang, 1988 FA Cup final, the Premier League Boo Boys. No one wanted to play for them. Vinnie Jones, Dennis Wise, John Fashanu, John Scales, Dean Holsworth. So many good players over the years. Neil Sullivan, the goalkeeper. This is the battle for us, for a legacy, really. Now, the soul of the club belongs to AFC Wimbledon and always will, because the soul of the club is the fans. But MK Dons were Wimbledon, got stolen away from that fan base, moved to Milton Keynes, rebranded with a silly name, and AFC Wimbledon was the Phoenix club that was born out of the ashes, and I think their success is the most important thing in the 4 divisions that we look at here. Well, I know there's 5 because we do look at the National League as well, but of the 4 professional, let's call it full-time professional divisions, Premier League, Championship, League 1, League 2, AFC Wimbledon and what they have done, what their story is the most important thing that's happened, because it's entirely grassroots, it's entirely fan-led. And it's proof that just because some rich guy comes along and ruins your club or takes your club away, it doesn't mean that they take your fandom with it. It doesn't mean that they take what matters to you with it. So looking forward to that one. The other 12:30 kickoff is Swindon Town versus Newport County. Then at 3 p.m, we have Salford City versus Cheltenham, Bromley versus Notts County, Gillingham versus Tranmere, Walsall against Bradford City, Grimsby Town against Barrow, Accrington Stanley versus Crewe Alexandra, Morecambe against Colchester, Carlisle against Fleetwood, and Port Vale against Chesterfield. I suppose we might as well have a quick gander at what's taking place in the National League. All bar one of these games is at 3 p.m. kickoff tomorrow. So, FC Halifax versus Eastleigh, Forest Green against Wealdstone, Woking against Oldham, Yeovil Town against Altrincham, Boston United against Aldershot, Tamworth against Maidenhead, Barnet against Braintree, York City against Field, Ebbsfleet United against Hartlepool, Southend United against Sutton United, Rochdale against Solihull Moors, and then the only non-3 p.m. kickoff is a 5:30 kickoff when Dagenham and Redbridge take on Gateshead. And Gateshead are currently top of the table, level on points with Rochdale, Forest Green and York City, but do have a game in hand. So they've played a game less, they're currently unbeaten, and that game in hand will be made up out of, obviously, at a later date. Right, we'll go to break. When we come back, Guy Drinkle will be with us. See you in a sec. Right, welcome back. So, as always, on a Friday during the football season, I'm joined by Guy Drinkle. How are you, sir?
Football's back, isn't it? Who can be bothered with that international cack?
It is nonsense, isn't it? It's absolute nonsense. And so much of it is just such a poor standard. And people get very excited about players performing well against really bad teams who ultimately would probably struggle in like League One. And there's fans of Premier League clubs cheering on that their favourite player has sparkled against a team that not one of the players would make a Premier League squad. It's great stuff, really. Right.
Sounds like throwing shade at Ireland to me.
Oh, right. No, 100% that's what it was. 100%. Yeah. Ireland and Finland.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, in fairness, we have a couple of Premier League caliber players. I don't think Finland have any, do they?
I'm still counting Teemu Pukki.
Teemu Pukki, was Jussi Jääskeläinen Finnish, or have I made that up? Was he Icelandic? Let's see. Jussi Jääskeläinen. He's Finnish, yeah. He is currently a coach. I didn't know that. He is coaching with a club in Finland in the second division. So fair play to him. Who else is in that Finnish national team? Not that this is in any way relevant. Lucas Hradecky is decent,
Sami
to be
Hyypiä.
fair.
Sami Hyypiä is still the best center.
Sami Hyypiä is still the best defender. Right. Lucas Hradecky's okay. Glenn Kamara's decent. But was a championship player, it's worth pointing out. Yeah, no, there's just nobody here. It's just a very, very limited squad for Finland at the moment, as it generally tends to be. Like, over the years, they've had some tremendous players, but they all tend to be one-offs, like Sami Hyypiä and like Jari Litmanen. But that's enough about them. But actually, Middlesbrough legend Marcus Fors is currently out injured, but he is a Finnish international. So there we go. Right, on to this weekend's games. We have 10 of them. Where do we start?
We start with a relegation 6-pointer. That's so. No, we're trying to go through some of these quicker, but this is actually maybe the most interesting one. I know the North London derby's there, but what this could mean for Erik Ten Hag's United career is very interesting. Whereas the game probably isn't. But I had this discussion with Tadua on a tad predictable earlier in the week. How do United approach this game? Because we know they should dominate the ball because it's Southampton. But that's the entirety of Southampton's tactics is dominate possession, whereas we know United are better at counter-attacking. But can United give up the ball to, let's be honest, an already relegating, penciled-in team?
I don't even think it's pencil. I think they might be in pen. This is the thing. I mean, the smart move is for United to go there, let Southampton have the ball, knowing that they're not good defensively, Southampton that is, and they're not exactly, they're not exactly scoring for fun. They've got 1 goal through 3 games. They couldn't score against the Toon, who had 10 men for the majority of the game. And then United would be best served taking the ball off them and just hitting them on the counter-attack with pace. And that is the real way they win that game. But like you say, can they really justify doing that against a team that are second from bottom, only on goal difference, have no points, 1 goal scored, are recently promoted, still playing quite a few championship caliber players? And I know it's away from home, but at the same time, it would be a little bit embarrassing. Like, you would never have seen Alex Ferguson's United do that. You look at some of the great counter-attacking teams we've had in the Premier League over the years. And I mean, talking about great teams, like, at the top clubs. Mourinho's Chelsea were dynamite on the counter. But they never would have gone to Southampton and just let them have 60% of the ball. Liverpool under Klopp, amazing on the counter. That would have been an easy victory for them to go to Southampton, sit back and just counter. But they never would have done that. They mightn't have had 60% of the ball themselves, but they would have had at least 50. They would never have gone and just conceded territory and the ball. But this United team are not very good. And ultimately it comes down to a manager who is in year 3, is yet to impose any sort of tactical identity of his own, tried to, and 45 minutes into his second game, having lost the first one and being 4-0 down away to Brentford, just said to them, let's just do what you were doing last year under Ollie. And went back to doing exactly what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had done. A deep block, a deep midfield, pace on the wings, pump it wide, pump it central, and counter them to death. And that's all he's done. And I don't know that this team, despite the enormous talent advantage they have against Southampton, are actually capable of outplaying Southampton, as ridiculous as that sounds. I think they could go there and try and dominate the ball and play high up and be aggressive. But I do think that would then leave themselves exposed, because there's holes in that defence, there's holes in that midfield. I'm really curious to see who's playing in midfield. Is Casemiro back in after his comical performance against Liverpool? Or does he go with somebody else? So, I mean, he could play Ugarte, but he's not trained with them, because he signed, then they played Liverpool, and then they went away on international duty. So he hasn't trained. I'm really interested to see what United do. I think United will win the game, because I think Ten Hag will just cede the ball. I think that will cause a lot of consternation within the fan base. So he's in a no-win situation here. If they win the game, they're expected to win the game. If they win the game playing like we're talking about, he will get criticised. If they lose the game, though, all hell will break loose. That may be
someone get Gareth Southgate's number.
Would not surprise me. I said before the season started, I think by November, Southgate is United manager. I still see that as the situation. I think the only change from that would be him bringing it forward and it happening sooner. I don't see any scenario. I really just don't see any scenario in which Erik Ten Hag sees out this season. I really don't.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I think it just seems inevitable that, like, you don't publicly chase managers and Thomas Tuchel that publicly if you have any faith in the manager lasting more than a season. It was almost embarrassing, to be fair. It was embarrassing for the club, and it was embarrassing for Ten Hag.
It was completely embarrassing. And, like, here's the thing as well, right? If you're publicly doing that, you're telling your current manager, we don't want you anymore. But Jamie Carragher was right when they said they bottled it, because what they should have done was they should have fired him and then undertaken their managerial search. Rather than kind of parking him in a corner and saying, right, hang on a second, we'll let you know if you have a job. Because the optics on that are terrible, but also other managers are walking in, and it's a very uncomfortable thing. Like, you're interviewing for a job that someone else is already in. That speaks volumes about how you treat people. And it wouldn't surprise me if a couple of the managers that they approached were completely put off by that. And the thing is, they can't just blame this on the Glazers. This is Dan Ashworth, Jim Ratcliffe, and this new group that have done this. So it speaks volumes about how they're treating managers, and other managers are going to look at that situation and say, well, I'm not going to go there. Like, how do I know at any point that they're not talking to somebody else about my job while I'm trying to do it? I think they thought by publicly pushing the Tuchel thing that Ten Hag would say, you know what, I won a League Cup, I've won an FA Cup, I can wipe my hands, I can walk away and say, I won 2 cups, and no one else other than City has won more than me. And I finished in the top 4 once in 2 seasons, which is the same as Liverpool, which is the same as Villa, which is the same as Newcastle. But I won 2 cups that none of them did. Arsenal finished in the top 4 twice, but they didn't win any cups. So I can walk away and say that other than Pep, I did the best job. And it would be slightly diluted, obviously, but he could still run that. He could walk into an interview and put that on the table and say, look, I won 2 cups. Who else won 2 cups?
Considering the merry-go-round of, like, buy and looking for a manager, he would have got interviews as well.
He would have got interviews. He could have gotten the Benfica job, which just became available a couple of weeks ago. You know, he would have been in a position to go for these type of jobs. I think they wanted him to quit. I don't think they wanted to sack him. I think they bottled the decision to sack him. I think Carragher's right.
Yeah, fully agree. Fully agree. And I'm sure you'll discuss that more on Monday's show if it does happen, if the result does happen. But moving on, we'll go through some of these 3 o'clock kickoffs a bit quicker because, well, they're not as interesting. Brighton hosted Ipswich, Dave. Brighton have a lot of injuries at the minute, especially in that midfield. I think both the new lads are injured and James Milner, who's been starting, is injured as well, which you'll say is not a bad thing, but he is playing there. They have a lot of options there. You'd think Believers came into the starting 11 recently. Ipswich also have injuries, but again, I think we mentioned it, the one before the international break. This is almost their second game of the season rather than the fourth, because the first two were horrendous. But how do you see this one going?
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right on Ipswich. Their season began with the Fulham game because their first 2 games were Liverpool and Man City away. Nobody expected them to get anything. Any points they'd have gotten from either of those games would have been huge bonuses. So Ipswich, no Harry Clark, no Nathan Broadhead, no George Hurst, no Wes Burns, no Janoy Danassian. I don't think he would have played anyway, but Omari Hutchinson is fit, so that's a big deal for them. For Brighton, no O'Reilly, no Milner, Wiefer most likely not playing. Kadioglu might be available, though, which could be fun. Veltman is back, Gruda is still out, and Solly March is still out. And that's getting concerning because it's coming up on 12 months since he had that knee injury. It's a very, very long recovery. Brighton have obviously made a really good start. Unbeaten, 7 points, third in the league. Got a result away to Arsenal last time out. I think Brighton win this game, given it's at home and the form that they're in, but it wouldn't surprise me if Liam Delap caused them a lot of problems, because he's the type of big, bustly, powerful centre-forward that has traditionally caused Brighton issues. But under this manager, Erzelier, maybe they're just a bit more solid defensively. I'll go Brighton to win, but I think it'll be a good game. I'll go 3-2.
Yeah, you probably did it in part 1, but manager of the month. Erzelier as well, considering he's, 31?
I actually didn't even get that. I'm not surprised. I think because Arne Slot comes in from Feyenoord. It's a big club. It's a top league. It's a league that's well thought of, even though it's not particularly strong. He'd won a league title there. He was well known. He'd been linked to Premier League clubs before. Ursula's come in from the second division in Germany. I know he got them promoted, but he never managed in the top flight. He took St. Pauli out of the second division to the first division. So it's an enormous step up for him. His age factors in, and yeah, I think it's well warranted. I think he's done very well.
Yep, I forgot about two-footed extra. You'd probably talk about one there rather than part 1 nowadays. Cheeky plug. We'll move on then to Crystal Palace hosting Leicester City. Palace, I think you've discussed it every time you've talked about them, had a weird summer, so maybe a weird start was kind of expected. But interesting on Leicester, again, discussing this with Tadira on A Tad Predictable, I feel like Steve Cooper is a bit more of a defensive manager, but I feel like with the players he's got, he has to throw in a couple more attackers. Maybe even just one. I think you need Mavididi, you need Fatua in the same side, or you need to bring in a Canuce or whatever, because that midfield three played in the last game of Winks, Skip and Ndidi, that would look out of place in a Tony Pulis 2008 side.
Yeah, that's not an acceptable midfield. I mean, there's just no need to have those three on the pitch together unless you're away at Man City, Arsenal or Liverpool. There's no reason for those three to be on the pitch together. Neither of these sides have made particularly great starts. Obviously, Leicester have had tough opposition. Palace lose Elise. They begin the season with a lot of speculation on Guehi, on Eze. Then they lose Anderson after the season had already started. So that's tough. But I do like the business they ended up doing in terms of incomings. Leicester, I think, have left themselves a little bit short, but I do like Steve Cooper. He is, as we say, a more defensive manager. But I think he's good at at dragging teams along. I think he'll potentially keep them up. I certainly have more faith in them, in him and them than I do in Russell Martin and Southampton. Palace need the win here, though, because they have to get their season up and running. Otherwise, like, they're going to start looking a bit silly, because let's remember they turned down a big bid for Glasner and demanded an outrageous fee from Bayern.
Yeah.
And if things go badly, that's not going to look very good for them. So I'm going to back Palace to win. If we look at the injuries, Palace, no Chadi Riyad, no Matthias França, who I'm hoping is back soon. Chadi Riyad, poor fella, is out until December with a knee injury.
Oh,
that's such a shame. But Chalobah might be good to play. Wharton is fit. No Rob Holding. He wouldn't be playing anyway. Leicester, Stolisic wouldn't play. Daka wouldn't play. But Edouard and Daka both being out is a bit of a blow. Bobby D. Cordova-Reid should be good. I'll pick Palace to win. I'll go 2-1.
Yeah, just quickly, how would your back three look for Palace? Would Chalobah left, Lacroix right?
Would everybody fit?
Well, without Chadi Riyad there, because he's the lefty, isn't he?
Chadi Riyad is normally the lefty. I would probably actually go Chalobah right, Wehi left.
Yeah.
And Lacroix in the middle, just for that aerial presence. Plus, Wehi's got more experience on the left of a 2. Chalobah, I'm not sure I've seen play on the left of a 2. I think he'd be fine, especially at 3. But it wouldn't surprise me if Chris Richards actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's probably more versatile, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's also up to speed. Like, he's played pre-season, he's played games so far, whereas Chalobah obviously was treated horrendously by Chelsea in the summer. So maybe a little bit lacking in match sharpness. So maybe he's on the bench this one if he's fit to play.
Good set of defenders, though, to be fair.
It is.
Yeah. We'll move on to Fulham against West Ham. This is though we earmarked as a quick one. I mean, both sides started the season all right. I think they both it's very early to look at the table, but I think they're next to each other in the table, 12th and 13th. Maybe slightly disappointing from West Ham, but they've had a couple hard games, to be fair. It does smell a bit of a draw, but I think West Ham's slight favourites, but it does stink a bit of a draw for me.
If it was in West Ham, I'd have West Ham as obvious favourites to win it. But given it's in Fulham, I think a draw does seem likely here. As you said, West Ham have had a tough run of games. Home to Villa, that's tough. Away to Palace, that's tough. And they got a win there. They probably should have lost the game, but they did get a win. And then they lost at home to City, which I think everybody expected to happen. If we look at the injuries coming into this game, Fulham have been remarkably good with injuries in the last sort of year and a half. Carlos Vinicius is out. He wouldn't play anyway. He's the third choice, number 9.
Didn't realise he was still there, to be fair.
No, neither did I. think he was on loan last year, wasn't he? And they couldn't find a buyer in the summer. Fulkrug is a doubt, and Aaron Cresswell is out. I'm not sure whether Fulkrug will make the bench or not, but Cresswell wouldn't be playing anyway because Emerson Palmieri has taken the left-back role. Areola is fit, which is good news because obviously he's a very good goalkeeper. I'll go the draw. I'll go 1-1. This won't be a game for me to dig too deep into it all. Even afterwards, I'm not going to watch too much of it.
Yeah, not the most remarkable. Last one before we go to a quick break, and that's Liverpool hosting Forest. Forest started the season quite well, to be fair to them. Probably better than a lot of people expected. I think I've mentioned on here before, one of my predictions over on today's show was Nuno getting sacked, and I feel like that's already wrong. But Liverpool, perfect to start. And if they are to challenge Man City, or challenge for the title, if it is to Arsenal to be the champions this year, they have to beat Forest at home. They simply do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they absolutely do. But like you said, Forest have started really well. And in truth, Forest should actually have 7 points. They should have beaten Bournemouth. But Forest have looked good. Like, they're playing well. They're defending well. Their midfield looks strong, even with the Danilo injury, which is a big blow. No Willy Bolly, and likely no Ibrahim Senghir, which is actually a massive blow in the context of things with the Neo out, it being away to Liverpool. Liverpool, it's only Harvey Elliott who is missing. So they're pretty much at full strength. Liverpool have looked good. They're strong defensively. They haven't conceded a goal yet. They're the only team in the division who hasn't. And they're creating a lot of chances. I mean, they've scored 7. They probably should have over double figures. You know, if you look at the chances that they've created, the chances that they've missed against Ipswich and particularly against Brentford, there was a couple of big misses there as well. So I am quite confident in Liverpool going into this one. But I see more of the same. I see them going in, getting a couple of goals ahead and then controlling the game. I don't think this will be a Jurgen Klopp type thing where they get those couple of goals and then go for the jugular. I think Arne Slot's more about preservation rather than domination. So I think we'll say 2-0 to Liverpool. And that is just through, is that 6 of the games? So that's 5 of the games.
It's 5 of the games.
5 of the games. So we'll go to break. We will be back after with the next 5. Right, welcome back. So, we've previewed 5 of this weekend's games. Southampton United, Liverpool Forest, Fulham West Ham, Palace Leicester, and Brighton Ipswich. And we have 5 left. One more at 3 p.m. I like that we have a 5:30 and an 8 p.m. I like a good Saturday full of action with games spread out. And then obviously we've got 2 big ones on Sunday. But let's get into the rest of Saturday's games, Guy.
Yep, as you mentioned, still on the 3 o'clocks, and we've got City hosting Brentford. I mean, Brentford are their bogey team, I suppose. And Man City, I mean, it's weird that everyone says, oh, Man City slow starters and the City are 9 points, and I don't even think they've played that well, and they haven't had Rodri yet this season, which is concerning if you're a rival fan. Yeah, it feels like an easy prediction of Man City, but there is that bogey team factor, as I mentioned.
There is, and like Brentford, because of how they play in that counter-attacking style, they are a team that do cause City problems because Brentford don't really have any fear. Like, they know they're not expected to win, so anything they get's a bonus. So they're prepared to be a little bit more aggressive and try and win the ball maybe a little bit quicker and get that ball moving, as opposed to some teams who'll be very patient and almost wait for City to make a mistake and then try and retain possession just to sort of rest on it. Whereas Brentford are happy to get into a basketball game. Now, City have no Oscar Bob. Obviously, he's going to be out for a while. No Nathan Ake. But Foden and Savinho are both fit, and Haaland is expected to be fit. He's obviously had an incredible start to the season. Brentford, no De Silva, no Gustavo Nunes, no Matthias Jensen is a big one. He'd been quite good.
Ooh.
Rico Henry is a couple of weeks away, but still out. Christopher Aya should be fine. Still no Aaron Hickey, which he was meant to be back before the end of last season. That's concerning. And no Igor Thiago, who's obviously got a meniscus issue and is expected back around December time. City are at home. City have 3 wins from 3. I don't see any reason to pick against them. So I'm going to go 3-1 City.
Yep, I wouldn't, but I wouldn't go against City either. On to the 5:30 kickoff. These are, the next 4 are all televised on Sky for the UK people. Villa hosting Everton, formerly known as the Kazoo Derby. I don't think it is anymore. Villa started the season quite well. Probably should have beaten Arsenal, let's be honest. Whereas Everton, let's just say, have not started the season well. I mean, all logic points to Villa. But Everton, they do the odd random result. I mean, I'm sure everyone remembers when Dyche first came in and they just randomly beat Arsenal out of the blue. So they are capable. But, I mean, logic. It's just Villa should just win. I think Onana will have a fire under his arse, considering how it left how not treated him, because I don't think he was treated badly at Everton. He just never seemed to click there, did he?
No, he didn't. Like, their fans are not the friendliest bunch when people wrong them. Villa Everton do get random results. Remember when everybody thought they were going to get pummeled by Brighton and they went there and like battered Brighton all over the place?
Yeah.
And even last season, you look at their run in the middle of the year, they lose to Spurs, lose to City, lose heavily at Wolves, and then they're playing Villa, and everybody thought, oh, they're going to lose that one as well. But they managed to get the win in that one. They did lose very heavily to Villa at the start of last season, a 4-0 whooping. Like you said, Villa have started the season pretty well. They should have beaten Arsenal. They should have been a couple of goals up on Arsenal before Arsenal realised the game was going on. But 6 points is not a bad start at all. Obviously, Everton, they should have beaten Bournemouth, but they were absolutely destroyed in the other two games by Brighton and Spurs. Both teams have injury issues. So for Everton, it's no Broja, no Tremetti, no Patterson, no Branthwaite, which is obviously the biggest of all. And Seamus Coleman is a doubt. But Villa have a lot of issues. So obviously Boubacar Kamara still out. Tyron Mings still out. Matty Cash is out. And Diego Carlos is out. There's only one Ezri Konsa, and they have two positions where they kind of
Konsa twisted his...
He did, but apparently he's fine.
Right, okay.
So apparently he's fine. Yeah, I thought he was going to miss out as well, and I thought they were going to be in a bit of trouble. Ollie Watkins is apparently fine as well. But Leon Bailey is going to miss this one. They're hopeful that Jadon Philogene will be fit, so he might play instead of him. There is a world in which Everton go there and get a result. But Villa just, at the moment, just are such a better team. I'm just going to back Villa. Villa play with a confidence as well, where they know they're a good team. Like, the biggest difference... Remember when Emery took over, Villa were trending towards relegation. And Emery immediately turned it around, and all of a sudden they became a top 4 caliber team. And they were a top 4 caliber team from when he took over in November 2022 right up until the end of last season when they finished in the top 4. And the biggest difference was confidence. Like, he turned them around immediately because he got them to believe they were a good team. They had no belief in themselves under Gerrard, which is why they were so bad. So I'm going to back them to win. I think they'll act like a big club and they'll treat Everton like a small club, which is what they should do, given where Everton are on the table. I think Villa win this one 3-1.
Just quickly on that, would you start John Duran, or would you keep faith with Ollie Watkins? Because he's not started the season well. He obviously didn't have a pre-season with England going deep. But John Duran started the season really well. I think he scored twice off the bench. But Villa do need to start killing games off, because if Duran started against Arsenal, they'll probably win that game.
Do you know, there's a big part of me that's tempted to say start both of them. Play Rodgers on a wing, especially with Bailey out. So move Rodgers to the wing in his place.
Yeah.
And play Duran with Watkins.
Because Ramsey still looks a bit rusty, doesn't he?
Ramsey doesn't look quite right. You've got McGinn playing pretty well. Onana's playing really well. Tielemans is playing pretty well. So I'd be inclined to leave Ramsey out, play McGinn maybe on the left, Rodgers on the right, and go with the two up front. And properly lean into your size and physicality.
Yeah.
But if you're going to pick one, I would probably still lean towards Watkins because he is your 9. Like, he is your starter. And he's coming off a great year. You don't want to torpedo his confidence. I know he's not been great, but Duran is playing well off the bench. We don't know what he's going to look like as a starter. It's one thing coming on against tiring defences when you're 6'3" and a ball of energy, rocket-fueled pace, an absolute howitzer of a left foot. We don't know what you're going to look like as a starter. What does your hold-up play look like? Do you run the channels? Do you work hard for the team? These are things that he wasn't doing last year. Plus, remember, Duran is just back from South America, so it's a long-ass flight back as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And they have a midweek game as well.
And they have the midweek game. So I'd be inclined to start Watkins, but maybe say to Duran, I'm going to start you midweek. We're going to give you the Champions League game.
Yeah.
So that's you're going to be your reward. You're going to start the Champions League game. That Champions League game, and what a night that's going to be for Villa. In the Champions League for the first time, back in the European Cup for the first time since the 80s, when obviously they won it and then went back into it the next year as defending holders. I think it's fantastic fun.
Yeah, I think he's one to look out for as well this season. Durrani just looks just a ball of fun, as you said. But we'll move on to the 8 o'clock kickoff. So this is on Sky as well. UK people, Bournemouth hosting Chelsea. Again, this is every week. I might as well say this. Every time we're going to talk about Chelsea, we might as well just shrug our shoulders and go to the next game, because who the hell knows what's going to happen here? But Bournemouth are a good side. They've shown resilience already this season with scoring late goals to, win a game and rescue a point against Forest. Maybe they need to start showing a bit more in terms of winning a game early or a bit more quality in front of goal. But their strike force did get kind of torn apart, the core, when Solanke left quite late on in the window. So I think they've still got to find that balance with Evan Nielsen. I think Semenyo's probably going to be their breakout forward this year if Evan Nielsen doesn't explode into life soon. But yeah, this is an interesting game. But who the hell knows with Chelsea games this season?
This is the thing. Like, you just don't know which Chelsea are going to turn up. Like, they go and they absolutely demolish Wolves and looked outstanding. Like, genuinely looked outstanding in that game. And then they just put in a damp squib against Palace in the next game. They obviously beat Servette 2-0 in the first leg of their playoff for the Conference League, and then almost bottled the whole thing. Like, Servette were a goal away from forcing extra time, and Chelsea looked completely all at sea. They're just such a weird team. I don't know what to make of the manager. I think he's a little bit arrogant for a fella who's done absolutely nothing. I don't know what Chelsea's going to turn up. Injury-wise, no Reece James and no Malo Gusto means no right-back. Romeo Lavia's out. Omari Kellyman's out. He wouldn't play anyway. Jurgensen is okay to play. And Cole Palmer is fit because he wasn't actually injured. They just didn't want him going on international duty.
Weird, that.
For Bournemouth, no Adams, no Kepa, who can't obviously play against his parent club. So that does mean Mark Travers probably starts. Mark Travers is very hit and miss.
Mm-hmm.
Unal is injured, but will get a fitness test. Ouattara is out. That's a blow, because he'd start.
He's been
right,
good, hasn't he? Yeah.
But Billing is fit, so at least they'll have him back. He's caused Chelsea some problems in the past with his size. The game is at Bournemouth, so I'm inclined to give Bournemouth a bit of an advantage from that standpoint. Obviously, Chelsea have the better team, the better players. I think Bournemouth have considerably the better manager. And I think they're the type of team that will cause Chelsea problems. I'm going to go 2-1 Bournemouth.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise. If either of these side won like 3-0, I don't think anyone would blink an eye.
No, or if it was, like, that's the thing. Like, you wouldn't be surprised at any kind of result out of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very strange. Very strange. On to Sunday then, kicking off at 2 o'clock on Sky with Spurs hosting Arsenal in the North London derby. Police getting in the way. Put it on later. Something boring. I mean, do your hard job. But I mean, the key thing before the game, Dave, is Arsenal missing key players, Reich suspended, and Odegaard injured. He's not doing a Pep Guardiola and he just magics his way onto the field. I suppose we start there. What's your Arsenal midfield looking like?
Yeah, so no Odegaard, no Rice, and no Mikel Moreno. That may well have been their starting midfield.
Yes, of course, yeah.
No Tomiyasu, no Kieran Tierney. Calafiore's most likely out as well. Gabby Jesus is expected to be fit to play. So I'm guessing, this is a pure guess, I'm going to guess Kai Havertz starts in midfield with Thomas Partey,
Jorginho.
and Jorginho.
Do you move the attack to fix something else, though? Or do you want to keep the attack as is?
I would keep the attack as is. I just don't know what option they have. Like, I don't know who else can come into it. Like, they could go with Saka in the Odegaard role and play Sterling.
Tadiwa mentioned Zinchenko to me the other day.
He's definitely an option. I mean, they could play Jurien Timber at left back and play Zinchenko in midfield. So you go, do you go Jorginho, Partey, Zinchenko as a midfield?
That's not great, but
it's a little bit lightweight.
Yeah.
But it'll be decent on the ball. Like, you've got two, I would say, very good passers, and Thomas Partey is a good passer of the ball. It's a tough one. Like, this is the first time in a couple of years that Arteta is having to deal with any sort of injury issue or, real kind of crisis among the squad. So this is a big test for him. Going away to Spurs, especially knowing that you've got Champions League in the week, and it's a pretty tough tie going away to Atalanta, and then you're away to City next weekend.
Ooh.
Like, that's a really tough little run there for Arsenal. That could easily be 3 defeats in a row. Spurs don't have Richarlison, but Solanke is fit. Van de Ven is fit. That's huge. Yves Bissouma is a doubt, but we'll see. I think Spurs are going to win this game. Now, obviously, Arsenal have started the season pretty well. 2 wins and a draw. Spurs have been a bit of a mixed bag. 1 win, 1 draw, 1 defeat. But, they should have beaten Leicester. They just blew chances. I think they should have beaten Newcastle as well.
Oh, God, yeah.
So, I actually think in terms of performances, Spurs have played better because I think they should have won all 3 games. Whereas with Arsenal, I think they should have lost to Brighton. I think they should have lost to Villa. So the only game I would say that they should have won was the Wolves game. And even Wolves made it tough on them. They haven't looked good thus far this season. I think Spurs win this one. I'm going to go 3-1 Spurs.
Whilst on this game, I had this discussion with Tad the other day. What do you make of Romero in this high line system of Ange? I know you're a big fan of Romero, but when he was signed, I think it was under Nuno, if I remember correctly, and then it obviously led to Conte, and it's like polar opposites in terms of defensive line, etc. Do you think Romero's suited? I think he could suit the high line, but I don't think it's ideal for him because he's not the most disciplined defender. And especially when Van de Ven's there, because he can mop up anything with his pace. But do you think he suits that? Because I'm interested in seeing Dragusin and Van de Ven together.
Yeah, so am I, to be honest. The best role for Christian Romero is the middle of a 3 in a mid-block. That's where he played at Atalanta, and he was staggeringly good. He was the best defender in Serie A that season by a country mile. I think you could play him quite easily in a high line if you had a more defensive-minded right back.
Yeah.
If you had... They're playing Arsenal. Let's just say if you had Tomiyasu or Ben White or Jurien Timber as the right back, who wasn't leaving a huge gap to his right. They have Porro, who's basically a winger. They have Adoiji, who's basically a winger, as the other side. So they're very attack-minded. Even if you had a defensive left-back, so Van de Ven moved across and that 3 basically had Romero on the right, I think that would be fine as well. I think the Spurs backline leaves him a little bit exposed because, like you said, he is a little bit rash. He is a little bit. Yeah, the thing is, you look at Martinez at United, and he's got some of the same issues. Very attracted to the ball, and sometimes overcommits towards the ball when that's not the play. When you need to have a bit more discipline and hold yourself back a little bit. I think it would work better for Spurs if they had a Ben White, a Tomiyasu type of right back, a Joe Gomez type of right back.
Even just as an option in certain games.
Yeah, exactly. Against good teams, like against a lot of teams, you can do it and it's fine because, like you said, Van de Ven's pace covers for anything and everything. But I don't think it's fully getting the very best out of Romero. Now, I still think he's an outstanding defender. I think he's the best defender of any of the London clubs. I would have him over Saliba. I would have him over Colwill. I'd have him over Gabriel. I'd have him over whoever else you want to name. I'd have him over Mark Wehi. I think he's really, really good. I don't think the Spurs set up. Because, remember as well, it's not like they've got someone that just sits in front and protects them.
Yeah.
Like, Basuma plays quite high. Sarr plays quite high. When Bentancur is in, he does sit a little bit more because he's more of a dictator than a kind of box-to-box player.
Mm-hmm. He is slow, though.
He is slow, that's the thing. And so he gets caught out. And then Romero thinks, I've got to go and mop up there, and charges in. And oftentimes it works. Like 8 out of 10 times it does work. 8 out of 10 times when he gets aggressive and goes to win a ball, he does win it. Or at least he disrupts it and he stops the attack. But there's still 2 times out of 10 then when he doesn't, and now you've got problems because there's a big open space where he should be, or where your right back could be covering into. But because Poro's playing so high up, he's not there. Now, when Poro's a little more disciplined, which he does sometimes, then it's fine because he's got great pace as well. When Adoji's a little bit more disciplined, he's got great pace too. So they do get away with it more often than not. But it's when they don't that they get punished for it. And that's when you get Gary Neville and Carragher kind of breaking down the defensive flaws that Spurs have. And they do have defensive flaws. There's no question about that. But I do think this team, when it clicks, is going to be dynamite going forward. Like, those 2 fullbacks are both excellent. I like the midfield pairing. I like all the midfield options. I think they've got a really strong group of midfielders. I think the attack shows so much talent and promise. It's just about finding the right blend. And I think once Solanke finds his form, and I believe he will, I think he's going to be a success at Spurs. I think the style suits him. I think this is going to be a hell of a team. I don't think it's a title-winning team, but I certainly think it's a top 4 team. I think right now I have them finishing top 4 with City, Liverpool and Arsenal. And I think they'll win this game. So yeah, I'll go 3-1.
Yeah, I'd have it between them and Newcastle, I think.
See, I thought Toon, when I thought they'd addressed their issues, they didn't buy a right winger. They didn't buy centre-back. And while they can play Barnes and Gordon, that's fine. You can't play them every single game. They don't have any depth there. So I do worry that Newcastle leaving themselves short will cost them a top 4 spot. I think I like you. I thought it was there was a top 3, and then I thought the next group of 3 was Spurs, Villa, and Toon for 4th and maybe 5th if the Premier League gets a 5th spot.
Yeah,
I thought it'd be 2 from that 3, and then United and Chelsea for me were a step below them because there's so much uncertainty with both teams, even though they have a lot of quality.
Mm-hmm.
But now I wonder, have Toon, by not addressing their flaws, and with Botman out for a while, and with the injury issues we've seen them always have under Eddie Howe, and no guarantee that changes, I do wonder if maybe Toon could potentially finish even below United and Chelsea. Like, I think their range is anywhere from 4th to maybe like 9th.
Yeah, and Brighton could be back in the conversation as well.
West Ham,
yeah.
You know,
I think the only thing, we know they've got like about 70 million, so I think they'll have something in January to do. It just, I don't know, the infighting with him and Howe and Mitchell already is a bit weird, considering, I mean, Gahey was your one of one.
Yeah.
I think everyone rates Gahey, but the fact he was the only centre-back reportedly that Howe would go for. I mean, Chalobah was right. Chalobah was right there. Gomez was right there.
Chalobah was there on loan.
Yeah.
You could have just got him on loan. He was sitting there all summer available.
Mm.
You could have bought Maxence Lacroix for 15 million. And like, that's not going to affect your ability to get Mark Guehi in the future, because all of a sudden Lacroix becomes a really good third centre-back to have. By all accounts, Eddie Howe is the biggest reason that Dan Ashworth was so adamant that he had to leave Newcastle. And like you said, he's already arguing with Paul Mitchell. Now, we had a report the other day in the Telegraph from Luke Edwards that they've mended their problems, but he's nothing more than a mouthpiece for that club. So, of course, he's going to put that out there.
Yeah, you'd probably wait for Craig Hope, wouldn't you? Or
exactly.
I can't
exactly. Craig Hope or what's the fella? Is it George Culkin? Someone like that.
George Culkin, that's it.
Yeah. Like I think this will be Howe's last season to turn. If they don't get top four, I think he's gone, because I think
he knows the England job's waiting for him as well. If he left tomorrow, he'd be the England manager in a week.
He would, which I don't think would be the right decision for England.
Oh God, no, I don't.
But at least he'd get to work with all English players, so he'd be thrilled with himself. Right.
Yeah. So that's our one tangent. Apart from
and funny enough, it leads us into our last game anyway, which is Wolves at home to the turn.
Absolutely. I mean, Wolves just... If it wasn't for Everton, you'd... Maybe not depressing's probably the wrong word, but when you come into a season, you kind of want a sense of fun and something to look forward to, and I just don't get that from a side like Wolves. You've lost your best two of your best four, probably three players in Kilman and Neto, and you've not really replaced either of them.
No, you strengthened in the one position midfield where you're already strong.
Yeah, very strange.
Like Mosquera, to be fair, he looks like a good centre back, but he's clearly mental.
Not in a two.
He does wild things. Not in a two. No, he does wild things every week. But he's not a replacement for Tillman. Like, you've lost your leader, you've lost your organizer. Forgetting how good he is as a defender, you've lost the guy who talks to us through the games. That's a concern. And you've lost Neto, who's your best attacker. Now, you kept Cunha and you kept Aid Nuri, but to what end? Like, how long more are they going to put up with this? This weekend, Mosquera's a doubt, Lemina's a doubt, Aid Nuri's a doubt. They haven't trained basically at all. Enzo Gonzalez is out. Sasa Kalasic is out. Boubacar Traore is out. Like, that's a lot of problems for a small squad. Now, never fear, Tuner here, who always have loads of injuries. No Botman, no Lascelles, no Miley, no Wilson. Fabian Schär is at least back from suspension, but no Willock, and Emil Kraft is a doubt. So, like, you're patching together the defence again. You've no depth really in attack if Wilson's not available. You've got Almiron, but he doesn't want to be there anymore. You've got this weird Kieran Trippier situation where quite clearly the club wanted him gone. He didn't want to go. Now he wants to go, but the club don't want to let him go because they can't replace him because the window's closed.
Is Turkey closed now?
Tomorrow, I think? Or is it tomorrow or next week?
You keep talking, I'll Google.
I know it in Greece were still open as kind of the last two in Europe. But he clearly wants to go now. And they clearly wanted him out a while back, but that was when I think they thought they were going to get Guehi. So Emil
closes tonight.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see, like, if does Ben Chilwell end up in Turkey by tonight?
Maresca said he's registered in the squad today, I believe. So really? I guess he's staying. Yeah.
He's not training with them. So
let's say he's a Conference League player, I presume.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's what it'll be. I would be surprised. Maresca might not even turn up for the Conference League games. He might, be honest, the other coach, he's taking care of that.
The other 17 on gardening leave can come back. And Graham Potter's probably still on gardening leave. He can do it.
They're still paying Graham Potter.
Yeah.
And will be for a substantial period of time. And they're paying Pochettino this year as well, which is tremendous crack altogether. Paying three managers and the best two of them aren't at your club. That's good business. That's really good. It's nearly as good as Man United, who at one point were paying Moyes, Mourinho, Ollie, and Ralph Rangnick all at once, which is just fantastic stuff. Wolves have to win this game. Have to. Like, they've had a disastrous start. Toon, to their credit, have had a good start. And Toon have, I would say, 7 points that they don't deserve. Like, because they were battered all over the place by Southampton. Bournemouth outplayed them. And Spurs outplayed them.
Yeah.
But yet they've got 7 points because they've got quality in attack. Especially Isak, who's just he's an outrageous footballer.
Yeah, he screams. He screams like Bayern Munich if Kane leaves or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. If Kane were to turn around next summer and say, I think I want to go back to England.
I've got records to finish over here.
Yeah, do you know? And I think there'd obviously be teams interested. I would bet on United. Just saying, we have Højlund and Xerxes, but we don't care. We're going to go and buy him anyway. Or if Haaland was to push his way out of City. Or maybe if Eddie Howe is still at Newcastle, they can find some sort of swap deal there where it's Kane and cash for Isak. And that might solve everybody's problems.
Yeah.
And Kane could break Alan Shearer's record in Alan Shearer's Newcastle jersey, which just would be funny.
That would be funny.
Wolves have to win this game. 1 point. And, it's not as if they've played Forest, Chelsea, obviously, and Arsenal. So 1 point was kind of expected. But you're also starting to look at fixtures coming up. They get Brighton in the League Cup during the week. You expect them to lose there. Then they play Villa away. You're expecting them to lose there. Then it's Liverpool at home. You're expecting them to lose there. Then Brentford away. That's not easy. Then they have City at home. Then they're away to Brighton. And all of a sudden you're in November. And they might have 2 or 3 points. They have to win this game. I don't think they will, though. I'm going to take Newcastle to win 2-1.
And that's the last game?
That's it. That's us for today. We will be back later today with the 2-footed extra. And then from Monday, we'll be back to normal. Right. This show was brought to you by Sky Bet, as you heard at the start of today's show. We want to thank them for their continued support. And as always, to get involved with Sky Bet, you need to be over 18. And if you have questions or queries or problems with gambling, visit begambleaware.org and stay safe. Bye-bye.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.